Hey there, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling one of the most agonizing questions in any endeavor, really. Whether you're building a company, working on a project, or even just chasing a personal goal, how do you truly know when to double down and persist and when it's actually time to pivot, or maybe even completely quit? It's a decision point that trips up so many of us. It's often just shrouded in uncertainty and, let's be honest, a lot of emotion.
It really is. And we're constantly bombarded with these stories, right? Incredible grit, persistence leading to amazing success. And while that's undeniably powerful, I mean, grit is important, there's also immense strategic advantage and often, honestly, immense liberation in knowing when it's time to let go.
Strategic advantage. Okay.
Yeah. So in this deep dive, we've pulled together insights from top entrepreneurs, decision scientists, leaders, trying to give you a clearer framework for navigating these really critical choices. Our mission here is to extract that practical wisdom, those nuggets that help you make smarter, more honest decisions about where you put your precious time and energy.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We're often told, push through, never give up, that whole thing. But is that always the right advice? Or can it actually sometimes hold us back?
Not at all, no. In fact, decision scientist Annie Duke puts it brilliantly. She says, success comes from sticking to the stuff that's working and quitting the rest. Which leads to her point. That's why quitting is a skill you need to get good at.
Quitting is a skill. That's counterintuitive for a lot of people, I think.
It is. But she highlights this crucial psychological barrier we all face. She says, the longer that we continue to do something, the more cognitive debris builds up, and the harder it is to abandon. Just think about it, right? It's far harder, emotionally, mentally, to shut down a company after 9 years of blood, sweat, and tears.
Oh, absolutely.
Compared to just, say, 6 months of exploring an idea. That emotional clutter, that cognitive debris, it just makes objective decision-making incredibly difficult.
That makes so much sense. So if quitting is a skill, how do we actually, build it? Especially when so much of our identity or our resources might be tied up in something. How do we fight that natural human tendency to just, keep pushing?
Well, one really powerful tool is setting what Duke calls kill criteria.
Kill criteria. Okay.
Yeah, it means defining very specific conditions up front. Conditions that, if they're met, or just as importantly, if they're not met by a certain date, that automatically triggers a decision to quit. She even suggests a simple formula. If by date I have or haven't reached a particular state, I'll quit.
So you decide the off-ramp before you even get on the highway, essentially.
Exactly, and it forces objectivity.
Yeah.
Investor Ron Conway apparently uses this with founders. He asks them, what does turning it around look like within what time? It shifts the conversation away from just vague hope towards concrete, time-bound evaluation.
Yeah.
And from a project management view, this reminds me of the idea of recognizing dead snakes, initiatives that are basically dead on arrival. The key there is you have to completely shut them down. Don't just trim the edges. That complete halt allows you to fully redeploy those resources, that energy, somewhere more promising. The challenge, of course, is actually sticking to those criteria when the deadline hits and your gut is screaming, just a little longer.
Dead snakes. I like that visual. But it sounds, painful, right? Because truly knowing what's working and what isn't, that requires a dose of pretty brutal intellectual honesty. How do we get past our own biases, our ego, especially when we've poured so much in?
Oh, it's incredibly challenging. It is, but it's absolutely essential. Executive coach Elisa Cohn has this great piece of advice. She tells founders to put ego aside by asking themselves, just plainly, what does the business need from you right now?
Simple question, hard answer sometimes.
Very. It grounds you. It forces you to step outside your own wants and needs. To really answer that honestly, sometimes you almost have to, divorce yourself from the outcome. Imagine you're advising a friend on their business facing the same situation. What would you tell them?
Ah, that's a good trick. Get some distance.
Yeah, that external perspective can often unlock the honesty you need. And sometimes that honesty means admitting your own management style isn't working. Like one source suggested, it might sound like acknowledging, I feel like I'm not motivating you, the team, as well as I could.
Wow, yeah. That takes real vulnerability, which isn't always easy, especially for leaders.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about when you are getting feedback, but it's not just a little bit, it's like a tsunami, overwhelming, contradictory information. It feels impossible to find a clear path when you're just drowning in noise.
That's exactly where that intellectual honesty comes back in. It helps you separate the signal from the noise.
Yeah.
Take the Clay team, for example. They experienced this directly. They had this wait list, right?
Yeah.
And it generated a lot of feedback. But, they said, It was all unfiltered, and we were talking to all sorts of people who weren't the right fit. It was hard to find signal versus noise.
Been there.
Right. So their honest assessment led them to a pretty bold decision. They actually turned the waitlist back on for 15 months.
Turned it back on to get less feedback, essentially.
Well, less unfiltered feedback, more focused feedback. This decision to limit access, to focus on getting quality feedback from the right kind of people, they said it was one of the best decisions they made early on. It let them really fine-tune their approach. It's about being, as they put it, extremely rigorous and cutthroat about what is and isn't working to find that clear signal amidst all the chaos.
Okay, so being rigorous, cutthroat. If we're going to do that, we can't spend forever building the perfect, polished thing just to test it. Which I guess brings us to another really critical tool. The minimum viable test, or MVT. How does that framework help make those early gonna-go decisions?
Precisely. Yeah. Viswanathan emphasizes setting inconceivably short deadlines for these early efforts. Just ridiculously short. The goal isn't just to build the minimum amount of stuff. It's to build what's viable specifically for learning.
Viable for learning. Oh.
Yeah. This whole approach helps you build only what's necessary and, most critically, get to the learning as fast as possible. It's really about running small, focused experiments. You're trying to understand the problem better, validate your riskiest assumptions. You're not trying to scale a perfect solution just yet. It's purely a mechanism for rapid feedback and, adaptation.
Gotcha. Can you give us a concrete example? A good MVT in action, something that showed valuable learning without, a massive investment.
Certainly. Think about Duolingo's Weekend Amulet.
Ah, okay, I remember that.
Yeah, super simple feature, right? It just let users protect their learning streak if they miss practice on Saturday and Sunday. It was a very targeted test designed to combat that common weekend drop-off in usage. And it worked. It proved incredibly successful. It increased retention by, I think it was 2.1% over 7 days and 4% over 14 days. Small tweak, powerful lesson learned quickly.
Right, and minimal development effort, presumably.
Exactly. And another great one is Christina Cacioppo's early version of Vanta. Their first software version had a very little software to it. Seriously, customers would just input their AWS credentials into a basic web form,
All right.
and then the Vanta team would manually pull the data. Christina herself would literally write the reports. They just told customers the software was a little slow, and they'd send the reports the next day.
Wow, that's seriously scrappy, the Wizard of Oz approach.
Totally. But that manual, scrappy approach was a crucial MVT. It absolutely confirmed their hypotheses about customer need and willingness to pay before they invested heavily in building out the full software.
That Vanta story really highlights the viable part of MVT just enough to learn.
Yeah.
And, sometimes the most important learning from a test isn't finding a winner, but definitively proving something won't work no matter how much you want it to. I'm thinking of that Mac Pro example here.
Yes. A perfect, if maybe painful, illustration. The industrial design team at Apple, they desperately wanted the Mac Pro's heatsink and its inner enclosure to be manufactured from one single piece of aluminum.
Ambitious.
Very. And despite pouring significant effort and time into it, they simply couldn't make it converge. They couldn't get it to work reliably at scale. So Matt Casebolt, he ultimately made that incredibly difficult call to just stop that specific pursuit, even though, as he said, they had gone so far down the path.
Oof, that must have been tough.
Immensely. But it demonstrated incredible discipline, right?
Right.
Even with heavy investment, even with passionate desire from the team, if the core assumptions or the technical feasibility aren't validated through testing, it's time to pivot, or in this case, completely stop that specific idea. It takes real courage to let go of something you've poured so much into.
Yeah, that Mac Pro example really hammers home how deep that sunk cost trap goes.
Yeah.
We've poured time, money, emotion into something,
Yeah.
and walking away feels like admitting defeat or like we've wasted all that investment. How do we consciously fight that powerful sunk cost fallacy? Because it feels so natural.
It does. And Viswanathan gives some really direct, blunt advice here. He says products and ideas should be disposable at this stage. Just disposable. He compares it to a relationship. Like any relationship, the longer you spend with it, the harder it is to let go, even if it's not working. Don't get stuck in a sunk cost fallacy because you were too precious with your ideas. It ties directly back to Annie Duke's point about that cognitive debris building up. The more time, money, emotional energy you invest, the harder it becomes to be objective about stopping. The MVT approach we just talked about, it's specifically designed to counteract this. The whole point is getting to those key learnings before you fall too deeply in love with an idea or a product that just might not have market traction. You build in disposable testing from the very start.
Okay, disposable ideas, MVTs, intellectual honesty. What does this all mean for, like, developing new ideas in the first place? If you're struggling to get traction, even after iterating and testing, could it be because you're too focused on your solution instead of really truly understanding the problem you're trying to solve?
Exactly. That's a huge insight. As Christina Cacioppo advises, you'll know you understand the customer problem enough when you can predict 75% of what a customer tells you.
Wow, 75%. That's a high bar.
It is. But it means you've truly listened, truly internalized their needs and their world. You're making sure you're addressing a real pain point, not just building something you think is cool or interesting. Harry Ritter, the founder of Alma, he really exemplifies this. He apparently diagnosed customers' problems like a doctor.
Like a doctor, okay.
Yeah. He spoke to around 50 therapists, just listening, deeply understanding their challenges before he started building his mental health startup. He went broad and deep on the problem first. He was asking, what hurts? Long before he started saying, here's my cure.
So it's about that deep diagnostic work on the problem itself, not just jumping to refine your initial solution or assuming you already know what people need. It's almost like being a detective.
That's a great analogy, yeah. Joe Coleman, CEO of Contently, he found that many companies pour millions into producing content without really knowing what to write, what to track, or what their objective is, just churning stuff out.
Right, content for content's sake.
Yeah, exactly. So he advises, talk to your existing customers. Get your sales teams to share the common questions and challenges they hear every day. Build a kind of heat map of customer pain points. Really mine that data to figure out what you should be writing about or building. This ensures your solution, whether it's content or a product feature, addresses a real, validated need. And related to this is the peanut butter principle.
The peanut butter principle. Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's simply, if you try to solve every problem with your product, you'll do it all poorly. The idea is spread too thin, it's no longer tasty. It just highlights the critical importance of having a precise problem focus. It helps you understand exactly whose problem you're solving and which specific problem, so you don't dilute your efforts and end up solving nothing well.
Spread too thin, no longer tasty. I like that. Okay, so ultimately, after all the testing and problem focus, the market is the final judge, right? How do you know if there's real pull for your product, that feeling that the market wants it? Or conversely, how do you recognize that you might need a fundamental shift because that product market fit just isn't there yet?
Yeah, that feeling of pull is crucial. Chatoud describes reaching product market fit, that moment, as finally being able to relax a bit without worrying about the rock rolling back down the hill.
Huh, good image.
Isn't it? Until you reach that point, he says, it's like rolling a stone up a hill. If you stop pushing, it'll start rolling back down rapidly. That constant, exhausting pushing without feeling a clear market pull, that's a huge indicator that you likely lack product market fit. You might also see symptoms like your engineers drowning in requests for one-off custom features for different users. That often means there's no single, cohesive, validated problem being solved for a clear market segment yet.
All right, everyone wants something slightly different because the core value isn't hitting home. So how do you even begin to listen for that pull when you're just starting out? Before you have a massive user base to give you signals, you also think you need some really intentional strategies.
You absolutely do. It doesn't just happen. Julie Supan, who is YouTube's first head of marketing, she suggests focusing on the high expectation customer, or HXC.
High expectation customer.
Yep. Yeah. The idea is, if your product delights this most discerning, most demanding customer, it's likely to satisfy pretty much everyone else too. For Airbnb, she identified the HXC as the guest who wants to live like a local and experience Paris as if they are living there.
Not just a tourist.
Right, a much higher bar for the experience. Exactly. If you can meet their complex needs, you're probably onto something significant. And tactically, think about Brett Koff, the co-founder of Remind. He famously just Googled teachers who use Twitter, found 500 of them, reached out, and actually scheduled calls with about half. And on those calls, he asked just 2 simple questions. And then, this is the crucial part, he just listened.
Just listen, didn't pitch.
Nope. That direct, humble approach to customer discovery, it's absolutely key to finding that early market signal, that potential pull. It's not about convincing people, it's about deeply understanding their world.
That direct approach is so powerful, but maybe hard to scale. So beyond those initial conversations, what structures can help ensure you keep listening and keep adapting to market signals as you grow?
Yeah, that's where things like customer advisory boards or CAGs become invaluable. They serve essentially to validate whether your next move is right or wrong.
Mhm.
The key is to gather a really diverse cross-section of potential or current users. Critically, not just your biggest fans or happiest customers. You need the skeptics too.
Right. Avoid the echo chamber.
Precisely. And you engage them actively, maybe with targeted surveys or showing them mock-ups of new ideas or even in-person events. It's also smart to segment your CAB so you can make targeted requests. Make sure you're hearing from the right type of user about specific features or issues. This continuous structured dialogue provides those ongoing market pull insights you need. It helps you avoid building in a vacuum and ensures your product evolves based on validated demand, not just your internal assumptions or wishful thinking. It's like your ongoing early warning system.
Wow, what a deep dive. We've really unpacked this crucial and often difficult art of knowing when to persist versus when to pivot or quit. We've emphasized quitting as a skill, which is such a powerful reframe, highlighting the strategic advantage it brings.
Hmm.
We talked about cultivating that radical intellectual honesty to separate signal from noise,
Mm-hmm.
leveraging minimum viable tests to learn super quickly and avoid that costly sunk cost fallacy.
Hmm.
And ultimately, ensuring you're absolutely obsessed with solving a real problem that the market is actively pulling for.
Yeah, it really all comes down to trying to be objective, using data where you can, making informed decisions, but coupling that with a genuine willingness, maybe even an eagerness to let go when the evidence points that way. It's about being adaptable, deeply understanding the problem you're trying to solve for someone, and always listening for that market pull rather than just pushing against a wall.
It's an active choice, right?
Yeah.
Not just passively drifting along.
Absolutely. So we want to leave you, our listener, with this provocative thought. What old idea or lingering project or maybe even a feature are you holding on to right now? Perhaps out of habit, or maybe because of that stubborn adherence to sunk costs we talked about. And what new possibilities, what potential liberation might emerge if you applied some real intellectual honesty and truly embrace the skill of quitting? Ask yourself Elisa Kuhn's question. What does the business you're building, or maybe even just your personal life, truly need from you right now? We really hope this deep dive helps you make those difficult but ultimately liberating choices. Until next time, keep digging, keep learning, and keep building.